for pilot speaking. Thanks for flying Imagination Express, where every day we use our imaginations to travel to wonderful places. Oh, hi friends, and happy Black History Month. Black History Month is a time each year where we can focus on learning about the past, the accomplishments, the history of African American people who have helped us to overcome many things along the way. And since I was pretending to be a pilot today, I know just the person we should learn about. Bessie Coleman. She was the first African American woman to have a license to be a pilot. A pilot is someone who flies planes. She became a pilot all the way in France, which also makes her the first African American to earn an international pilot license. International means all over the world, not just the United States. Did you know that Bessie was not her real name? Much like a lot of people in the world, Bessie was just a nickname. Her real name was Elizabeth. She was born on January 26, 1892 in just a one-bedroom shack in Atlanta, Texas. She was number 10 out of 13 children. Just imagine sharing a bed with all of those siblings. When Bessie went to school, she had to walk 4 miles to get there. And her school was so small that there was only one teacher to teach everyone from 1st grade to 8th grade, and it was only one room. Back when Bessie went to school, African Americans and other children couldn't go to school together like you can now. Only African American people were allowed at her school. And in those times, the United States would not let people of color or women of color become pilots. But that didn't stop Bessie. Bessie taught herself to speak French and went all the way to France to achieve her pilot license. With this license, she began to perform dangerous air tricks for crowds of people. Her big dream was to open her own flight school. She also refused to perform for any places who didn't accept African American people. Bessie is a very important woman from our history. Because of her bravery and her willingness to never give up, she paved the way for many other women, especially African American women, to become pilots. She even has an airplane or aviation club and a mail stamp in honor of her. So just remember that you can be whatever you want to be. Follow your dreams and you will be simply amazing. See you next time, future pilots. Oh, hi friends, and welcome to another segment about a very important person that helped to change our country and quite possibly the whole world. Oh, did I forget to say Happy Black History Month? This month, we'll be talking about special people that came along and through hard work and a whole lot of bravery, helped to move our country forward. Today, let's talk about Shirley Chisholm. Way back in 1968, Mrs. Chisholm became the first Black woman ever elected to the United States Congress, representing the state of New York. After being elected, a lot of her focus was on healthy food and nutrition programs for the poor and needy. She did this during very uneasy times in the United States when racial issues were the news of every single day. Not only was she elected once, but Shirley was eventually elected 7 more times. How about that? Also, back in 1968, it was incredibly unusual for a woman of any color to be in such a position of leadership and power. And thanks to Mrs. Chisholm's bravery and service, the Congress that we have today and leadership across many industries is made up of people of color and women of color. Mrs. Chisholm paved the way for women like Kamala Harris, our current vice president, to use their skills, knowledge, and example to shine bright for everyone to see. Oh, and Mrs. Chisholm didn't do all of this by accident. She studied hard, went to Columbia University, and was involved in many volunteer activities too. So next time you hear about elections and voting, don't forget to think about Shirley Chisholm, the very first Black woman elected to Congress in the United States. Women are amazing, aren't they? We should always let them know that we love and appreciate them. And if you're a young lady, just remember that you can be just like Mrs. Chisholm or any other woman of power, and you too can make a difference. Thanks for tuning in, friends. Happy Black History Month. Until next time. Hi friends, it's so good to see you again. Welcome to the Clubhouse and another special segment for Black History Month. Today, we are featuring someone that's from our very own backyard here in Omaha, Nebraska, Senator Ernie Chambers. Senator Chambers was born in Omaha back in 1937. His mom was Lillian Chambers, and his father, Reverend Malcolm Chambers, was a pastor of the Church of God in Christ. Ernie had a big family with 6 siblings who were all born in Omaha. Ernie went to Omaha Tech High School, then went on to graduate from Creighton University and Creighton University Law School. When he was a little boy in elementary school, Ernie, like most kids, was bullied. He even witnessed another boy being bullied because of his clothing, and he stood up for him in front of all of his schoolmates. Ernie made a promise that he would always try to help anyone that was bullied or anyone that was being unfairly treated. During the 1960s, a time of racial injustice and unrest in Omaha, Ernie became the voice of his community and worked with the mayor and the police to find solutions to the ongoing troubles. From there, he went on to the Nebraska State Legislature and was elected to represent Omaha's 11th district. Not only was he elected once, but he was elected 11 times, making him the longest serving state senator in Nebraska history. While in the legislature, Ernie fought for equality in schools, the abolishment of capital punishment, the rights for college athletes to be paid, along with many other important issues of the time. Senator Chambers left public service in 2020. He's 84 years old now, still lives in Omaha, and continues to fight for the underdog. We can all learn from the amazing Ernie Chambers. All you have to do is stand up for what is right, speak up for yourself and for the people around you who could use your help, and together we can all make this world a much better place, just like Senator Ernie Chambers. Thanks for coming to see me again, friends. Hope we catch up again real soon. Bye for now. Oh, hi friends. Thanks for coming back to my Clubhouse for another episode on Black History. I was just appreciating how bright it is in here. You know, the lights really help me to see where I'm going so I can read or play or even color a picture. Without light bulbs, we might still be using candles to see in the dark like they used to a long time ago. And that is why I want to talk about Lewis Latimer, a young African-American man with lots of good ideas. Lewis Latimer was born in 1848 in Massachusetts. Just a few years earlier, his parents had to run away to escape from slavery. His father was caught, but thanks to another important person in Black history, Frederick Douglass, he was defended in court and set free again. Unfortunately, his father had to run away again a few years later, and Lewis Latimer needed to help his mother take care of the house and the family. After going into the Navy for a year during the Civil War, he got out and went to work for a patent law office. A patent is the piece of paper that explains an invention and says who invented it. While he was there, he watched the draftspeople who did drawings of new inventions, and just by watching, he taught himself how to do those drawings. From there, he let his imagination run wild, and he continued to come up with new ideas. He married his wife, Mary Wilson, in 1873, and they had 2 daughters. In 1876, a teacher of deaf children asked for his help with an invention. Let's see if you can guess what the invention was. It looked like this. It's a machine that helps you to talk to someone without being in the same room. Can you guess what that is? That invention was the telephone. Lewis Latimer helped Alexander Graham Bell with his final design for the phone in order to file the patent before anyone else could claim the invention. My, look at how much phones have changed over time. After that, Mr. Latimer continued to be well known for his abilities as a patent expert, inventor, and engineer. When Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, it would only work for a couple of days before it would burn out and no longer work. Look inside this light bulb. That little metal you see is called a filament, and that's what Lewis Latimer helped to perfect. He worked as a partner with Edison, and his invention was to make the light bulb last much longer and made it possible for us to use them in homes, buildings, cars, and to light up streets. He helped to install the first electric plants in Philadelphia, New York City, and Montreal, and oversaw the installation of lighting in railroad stations, buildings, and thoroughfares in Canada, New England, and London. He even had a hand in helping create the first ever washing machine. Along with all of this, he was a lover of music and poetry, just like me. So, in honor of Lewis Latimer, keep using your creative imagination, friends, and maybe one day you will be an amazing inventor just like him. Until next time, happy Black History Month. Hi friends, and welcome to the Clubhouse. I sure am tired after all that running. I was running here to wish you a happy Black History Month. This month, we celebrate and talk all about different people of color that changed the country, and in some cases, the whole world. Oh, and to be honest with you, I ran all the way here because the person that we're going to talk about today was an amazing track and field star. Alice Coachman was born in Albany, Georgia, way back in 1923. She had a huge family and was the fifth of 10 children. When Alice was young, opportunities didn't exist for a young Black girl to do many or any athletic activities. There were challenges stopping her from doing any of the things that she wanted to do. Not only because she was Black, but also because she was a girl. Early on in life, Alice showed an interest in track and field activities. Some of those activities are things like the long jump, shot put, and relay races. With nowhere to be officially trained or to practice, Alice would run barefoot along dirt roads to practice her running and jumping. That sounds like it would hurt. But she absolutely loved jumping and would practice and practice trying to jump higher and higher. And when she got to the 5th grade, her aunt, along with a very special teacher, encouraged her to reach for her dreams. When she entered high school, she tried out for the track team and made it. And eventually, her hard work and talent paid off, and she was offered a scholarship to the Tuskegee Preparatory School, and then went on to graduate from Albany State College. All of that hard work practicing her jumping paid off when she qualified for the 1948 Olympic Games in London, England, breaking a 16-year-old record to get there. And at the Olympics, she jumped a record high of 5 feet and 6 inches, making her jump better and higher than anyone else. And she won the Olympic gold medal, even though she had a back injury at the time. She received her medal by King George VI, Queen Elizabeth II's father. She was the very first woman of color from any country to win an Olympic gold medal. How special is that? And throughout her career, she ended up with 34 national titles, 10 of which were in the high jump. She was eventually inducted into the Track and Field Hall of Fame in 1975 and to the U.S. Olympic Hall of Fame in 2004. And not only did Alice Coachman run directly at all her challenges that were put in front of her because she was a girl and because of the color of her skin, but she literally jumped right over them. And you can do that too, whether you want to be a track and field star, a singer or dancer, an astronaut, or anything in between. Just remember that you can be anything you want to be. And as long as you work hard and practice, you will make it happen. I'll see you all next time, friends. I've got to run. Attention! At ease. Oh, hi friends. Welcome to another Black History Month short. Since February is Black History Month, we've been talking about some of the many men and women of color that have changed how we do things, how we view other people, and how to be brave and strong during difficult times. Today, we'll be talking about a very important person in our nation's military history. The military, or armed forces, are a group of people who fight for and protect our country. The person that we're going to talk about today is Benjamin O. Davis Sr., and he was the very first Black general in the American military. General Davis was born in Washington, D.C. way back in 1880. His father delivered messages for the United States government, and his mother was a nurse. During high school, Benjamin entered the school's cadet program, and during his 12th grade year, he took a few classes at Howard University. Howard University is one college that you can go to after you finish high school. But even though his parents were against it and wanted him to go to college, Benjamin was determined to pursue a military career. During his service, General Davis served in the Spanish-American War, the Philippine-American War, World War I, and World War II. And by that time, his excellent service and dedication to the armed forces was recognized, and he was made the very first black general in the United States military. He also earned many other awards and medals for his service, leadership, and bravery. And all of this happened during a time when black Americans weren't usually able to get the recognition that they deserved. General Davis proved that no matter the color, a person who does the right thing and works hard can do whatever they set out to do, even if there are obstacles in the way. He retired from military service in 1948 at the age of 68 after 50 years of service to his country. Oh, and his son, Benjamin O. Davis Jr., became the first black general officer of the United States Air Force. How about that? Well, thanks for tuning in today, friends. And remember, as long as you work hard and you do the right thing, you can be a general or anything else that you want to be. I better march off now. I'll see you next time. Left, 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 right, left. Oh, hi friends. I'm so happy that you've come back to join me in the Clubhouse. As you know, we're celebrating Black History Month here by learning all we can about men and women of color who have done important things in the world. And today, I'm so excited to share with you one of my very favorite writers, Bell Hooks. Bell Hooks was born in Kentucky with the name Gloria Watkins. Her father was a janitor for the post office and her mother was a maid. She began writing poetry at 10 years old and quickly began using her writing to speak against racism, which is when someone is treated differently because of the color of their skin, and sexism, which is when someone is treated differently or unfairly because of their gender. And this powerful voice of hers only got stronger. People told her she was like her great-grandmother, Belle Blair Hooks, because she was not afraid to say how she felt. So she changed her name to Bell Hooks. She received a scholarship to study at Stanford College, which is one of the best colleges in the United States. She then went on to get a master's degree at the University of Wisconsin and a doctoral degree in literature from the University of California at Santa Cruz. By then, she published her first book of poems called And There We Wept in 1978. Dr. Bell Hooks went on to write over 30 books and essays and win many major awards, and was an important voice who spoke about empowering and treating people equally, no matter where they came from or what they looked like. She even wrote some children's books because she knew it was important to speak to kids equally too. One of the things that I love most about her is that even though life was very hard for her sometimes, she believed that the best way people could treat each other was with love. She met lots of people, and she said that every one of them wanted to be connected with their neighbor. They wanted to be understood. And she recognized that we are all the same in very many ways. And I think that's true. In fact, she even began writing her name with only lowercase letters to show that she didn't want people to think of her as an individual person, but instead to focus on what she had to say. So today, in celebration of her life, I want to read a small part of one of her poems. Let's see. Oh, this is from her book, Appalachian Elegy. Listen, little sister, angels make their hope here. In these hills, follow me. I will guide you. Careful now, no trespass. I will guide you. Word for word, mouth for mouth, all the holy ones embracing us, all our kin. Well, thanks for joining me, friends. I hope that you'll check out Bell Hooks and her wonderful and important words, and maybe try some poetry of your own. Who knows, you could be the next Bell Hooks. Well, that's all for now. Until next time, happy Black History Month. Now I'll water it so it can take root and grow in its new home. Oh, hi friends. I'm just planting a little tree seedling in this pot. Once it starts to take root and grow a little bigger, I will transplant it and move it to a place outside where it can grow big and strong. As you know, we've been celebrating Black History, and today I wanted to tell you about Wangari Maathai. She was born in 1940 in Nyeri, which is in the country of Kenya on the continent of Africa. Her family was from a small village and her father worked and lived on a farm. Wangari did so well in school that she was selected to study in the United States. She got a bachelor's degree in biology and then went on to get her master's degree as well. From there, she went all the way to Germany to start studying for a doctorate before she returned to her home of Kenya. She initially worked in veterinary sciences, so her work involved animals. In Kenya was where she finished her doctoral studies and became the first woman in East and Central Africa to receive a doctorate degree. She began to become more and more active in her community. She faced a lot of resistance and pressure as a Black woman, and oftentimes people in power would dismiss her ideas or try to keep her from being successful. She joined the National Council of Women of Kenya, and she started the Green Belt movement. It was while she served in the National Council of Women that she was introduced to the idea of planting trees with the people in 1976 and continued to develop it into a broad-based grassroots organization whose main focus is the planting of trees with women groups in order to conserve the environment and improve their quality of life. She understood that taking care of the environment by doing things like planting trees was so important. It would keep our planet healthy, it would prevent parks and forests from being torn down, and it could help create jobs and reduce poverty since people were needed to plant trees. So the Green Belt movement worked to plant trees all over Kenya, and she would pay each worker for every tree that they planted. She had to struggle a lot against injustice. There were many people who didn't think that women should have power or challenge the government's authority. They also didn't agree with her idea of democracy, which would mean equal power for everyone, instead of just a few people. She was even unfairly arrested several times, but she always kept working to make the world a better place. She wrote 4 books about the environment and activism and was finally elected to the Kenyan government as the Assistant Minister of Environment and Natural Resources. In 2004, she was the first African woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize. She was honored for her contribution to sustainable development, democracy, and peace. She died in 2011, but her legacy lives on. And in 2012, here in the United States, the Wangari Gardens was opened in Washington, D.C. It's huge, and it has all kinds of gardens, a fruit tree orchard, and even a classroom. She was indeed a very impressive person. Well, thanks for sharing another Black History moment with me. Go plant a tree, friends. Okay, so I've got the paper, pencils. Just need to grab a few more things. Hi! Welcome to the Clubhouse. Our friends Sammy and Tomas are getting ready to play pretend. They're going to be teachers, and I get to be the student, so I was gathering some things that we'll need. Have you ever pretended to be a teacher? I used to pretend all the time when I was a kid, and a teacher is something that I wanted to be. It's true. Hey, since I have you here, I think I have a little time to share another special person from our history with you. She was a teacher, but she was also the first African-American woman to graduate from high school in Omaha, Nebraska. Let's look at the vision board. This is Comfort Baker. Comfort Baker was born on February 15, 1870 in North Carolina. Sadly, by the time she was 13 years old, both of her parents had passed away and she became an orphan. Her aunt and uncle, Mr. and Mrs. Hendricks, adopted her and she moved to Omaha, Nebraska to live with them. Comfort was a great student. By 1885, she was in 8th grade at Central Grade School, and that same year, she was honored in the local newspaper, the Omaha Daily Herald, for never missing a day of school the entire time she went there. But this same year, Comfort suffered the loss of her uncle, and with her aunt going into a hospital for care, Comfort became homeless. Homeless is a word you use when someone doesn't have a place to call their own home. Because of this, Comfort got a job working as a maid and to be able to support herself while she went to school. During her high school years, she attended Omaha High School. But Comfort wasn't only a student. Comfort also worked as a writer for a black newspaper called The Enterprise, and she also volunteered to be a secretary for a new St. Philip's Episcopal Church at that time. By 1889, Comfort quit working as a maid, and she lived with different African American families in the city as she focused on the rest of school. She graduated this same year, which made her the first ever African American woman to graduate from high school in Omaha. She was top 3 in her class, and she even gave a speech at her graduation. Comfort wanted to go to a college in Tennessee to become a teacher, but she didn't have any money. But luckily, a math teacher who taught her at Omaha High School named Belle H. Smith cared enough to pay for her to go to college at Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee. She graduated college in 1893 and began teaching at Fred Douglass High School in Corsicana, Texas, which was the first school to serve black students from Dallas, Texas. Over time, she taught 7th and 8th grade at Frederick Douglass Grammar and High School in El Paso, Texas. After she married her husband, Reverend Allen Caldwell, in 1917, he moved her to his home state of Arizona, and they lived in Phoenix. Comfort became the first African American teacher at the Phoenix, Arizona School District. However, during this time, schools became separated and black people could only go to school in 2 small areas cut off from the main school. Thanks to Comfort and all of her success, she eventually led the state to build a brand new building specifically for them, and it would be the only high school in the state of Arizona that was built because of the separation of African American students. There's no doubt that Comfort Baker Caldwell was an amazing woman. In her lifetime, she taught for 52 years, and she had a lot of firsts. First African American female to graduate from Omaha Public Schools, first African American teacher at Phoenix Public Schools, first African American principal at Phoenix Public Schools, and the founder of the only school for African American students in Phoenix. Unfortunately, there hasn't been any official acknowledgement in Omaha for all of her accomplishments Comfort Baker achieved, but that doesn't mean that she wasn't important. Teachers are some of the most important people in our lives, and teachers like Comfort Baker made a difference in hundreds of lives of children in the communities that she served. And you know what? Maybe one day you can become a teacher and help the many students who could use your help. You never know where pretending and following your dreams might lead you. Oh, well, I better get back to Sammy and Tomas. Thank you for learning with me. I'll see you next time. Hi friends, welcome back to the Clubhouse. I'm on my way outside to play a game of red light, green light with some friends. Have you ever played this game? It's a really fun game. Everyone lines up in a straight line and you choose someone to be it. When you say green light, everyone moves towards the finish line. When you say red light, everyone freezes, and if you move, you're out. This game was started because of the traffic light. Hey, by the way, it is Black History Month, and did you know that the traffic light was created by an African American? Let me tell you about him before I go out. This is Garrett Augustus Morgan. He was an inventor, businessman, and community leader. Garrett was born March 4th, 1877 in Claysville, Kentucky. This was one of the only all African American communities outside of Paris, Kentucky at that time. He only went to school up to the 6th grade, and then he moved to Cincinnati, Ohio when he was 14 to look for work. He worked as a handyman fixing things for his boss. He even was able to hire a tutor to help him finish studying for school while he worked. In 1895, Garrett moved to Cleveland, Ohio, and he started fixing sewing machines for a clothes company, and this started his interest in learning how things worked. The very first thing he ever invented was a belt fastener for sewing machines and a zigzag attachment for them. In 1907, he opened his own sewing shop, and then a year later, along with his wife Mary Ann, he opened Morgan's Cut Rate Ladies Clothing Store. With this store, he made coats, suits, dresses, and other kinds of clothes. In 1913, he even began creating hair products and started the G.A. Morgan Hair Refining Company, which sold hair products and even a hair straightening cream, hair coloring, and a hair straightening comb, all invented by him. In 1914, he was the very first person to create a smoke hood, which is a type of gas mask that protects you from breathing in gas. He was also a great community activist, and in 1916, workers were trapped 50 feet beneath Lake Erie in a tunnel, and he was one of the rescuers who went in to rescue them. In 1920, the very first traffic signal was created, but it only had the words stop and go. Garrett witnessed an accident at an intersection, and he created the idea to create a warning sign to be added to it in 1922 so that people would know when it was time to stop. Eventually, these signs would turn and become the colors that we know today: red, green, and yellow. Some of the many other things he did was he created a newspaper, and he purchased a farm and built a business called the Wakeman Country Club, and it was open to black people, which most clubs at that time were not. In his lifetime, he's won many awards and had many things named after him, and he was even included as one of the 100 greatest African Americans to ever live. Did you ever want to invent something of your very own? Well, you can. All you have to do is write down your ideas and work on them. You know what I always say, follow your dreams and you will be simply amazing. Well, red light, stop. Green light, go. Well, I better go now. I'll see you next time. Friends, welcome to the Clubhouse. I'm so glad you're here. This month, we're celebrating Black History. That's a time in the year where we get to shine a light on amazing people of color who helped change our world for the better. Of course, we celebrate Black History every day of every month, but in the month of February, we get to dedicate it specifically to our Black culture. And today, I want to teach you all about a very special teacher who made a big difference in New York City way back in July of 1854. Her name was Elizabeth Jennings Graham. Although we don't know her exact birthday, we do know that Elizabeth was born in March of 1827 in New York. Elizabeth was very intelligent from a young age, and with the help of her mother, she even delivered a speech at just 10 years old. By the time Elizabeth was 27, she had become a school teacher, and she taught at the private African Free School, which was started by Alexander Hamilton, and it was a school only Black children could go to. Later in life, she would teach for the public school system. In the 1850s, there were no buses like the ones we can ride on now, so the most popular way to travel was by streetcars like this, that were pulled by horses. And during this time, the owners of the streetcars could choose who they wanted to ride on them. Black people were not allowed to ride on most streetcars, and for the ones where they could, they were only allowed to sit in certain areas. On the Sunday morning of July 16, 1854, Elizabeth was running late for church, so to save time, she decided to get onto a streetcar. The owner of the streetcar did not want her to ride and ordered her to get off, but Elizabeth refused until she was forced off by a police officer. When this happened, her story spread everywhere, with Frederick Douglass even posting about it in his newspaper, and it started a mission for Black people to fight against not being allowed to ride on streetcars. A lawsuit was started by Elizabeth's father, Thomas Jennings, and her case was handled by 24-year-old Chester Arthur, who would later become the 21st President of the United States. After almost a year of fighting, the court ruled in Elizabeth's favor, and the company who owned the streetcar began to allow black people to ride. In later years, Elizabeth Jennings Graham opened up and ran New York's first ever kindergarten school for black children inside her home. Elizabeth died on June 5, 1901, at the age of 74, and she has been honored many times since then. She has a street named after her in New York, and they are even planning to put up a statue for her. Elizabeth Jennings Graham helped change the streetcar system in New York, and there were many others after her who changed transportation in their own states, like Charlotte Brown in San Francisco, John Mitchell Jr. in Virginia, Irene Morgan, and most famously, 100 years after Elizabeth Jennings Graham, there was Rosa Parks. Thanks to the courageous fight Elizabeth and the others decided to take on, we now can ride on any public vehicle to get us to where we need to be, and that is a simply amazing thing. Thank you for joining me to learn more about our history, and I hope you'll do something kind for someone else. I'll see you next time. Hello friends, welcome to the Clubhouse. I have been spending time talking about many amazing African American people who helped shape the world that we live in today in honor of Black History Month. Black History Month is the month of February, and it's a time to celebrate and honor all of the wonderful people who've made a difference. Today, let's look at the vision board and learn about Mary Church Terrell. She was born Mary Elijah Church, nicknamed Molly, in 1863 in Memphis, Tennessee. Her father, Robert Reed Church, was a businessman and also the first ever millionaire in the South, and her mother, Louisa Ayres, was one of the first African American women to open and run her own hair salon. This was at a time when most women did not own their own businesses. Mary went to Oberlin College in Oberlin, Ohio, which was the first college in the United States to accept black and female students. Mary became one of the first African American women to graduate from the college with her bachelor's degree, which took her 4 years instead of the 2 years that was usual for women at the time. One of the classes she studied was Greek, and she once said that many people tried to get her to not take the class because it would be too hard and not something that a woman should do. In 1888, Mary earned her master's degree, which made her the first of 2 black women to earn such a degree. Mary did a lot during her career. Between 1885 and 1888, Mary taught different languages at Wilberforce University and the African Methodist Episcopal Church, as well as teaching Latin at the M Street School in Washington, D.C. In 1888, she would travel to Europe to study for 2 years, where she learned to speak French, German, and Italian. In 1895, she became the superintendent of the M Street High School, making her the first woman to have that job. And during her time, Mary also fought for the rights and empowerment of black women. She also became an author, writing many different pieces about the struggles that black people had to face in her time. Mary Church Terrell had an amazing career, and these are just a few more accomplishments that she had. In 1892, she helped form the Colored Women's League and the National Association of Colored Women. She was one of the founding members of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, known as the NAACP, in 1909. In 1913, she helped organize the Delta Sigma Theta sorority, where she helped write its oath and became an honorary member. Mary is also one of the main people behind the fight for the 19th Amendment, which now allows women the right to vote. Mary Church Terrell died at the age of 90 on July 24, 1954, only 2 months after the Supreme Court made their decision on the Brown versus Board of Education case, which allowed students of any race to attend any school they wanted to. Mary was a very remarkable woman who helped form a lot of the organizations that are still around today, and because of her bravery and willingness to do what's right, the world has changed for the better. Remember to always stand up for what you believe in and use your voice to make positive changes. Happy Black History Month. I'll see you next time. I can't seem to find that tennis racket. Oh, hi friends. How are you? It's a beautiful day today and Baxter and I are getting ready to play some tennis. Do you like tennis? Tennis is a fun sport where you can use a tool like this, called a tennis racket, to hit a fuzzy yellow colored ball back and forth over a net. And since we're celebrating Black History, I think I'll tell you about an amazing and talented tennis player who really accomplished a lot. Her name was Althea Gibson. Althea Gibson was born on August 25th, 1927 in South Carolina, and when she was 3, her family moved to Harlem in New York. She was the oldest of 5 children. The apartment that she and her family lived in was right on the street that was reserved for a police athletic league play area, which meant during the daytime, the street would be blocked off so that all of the neighborhood kids could play sports. This is where Althea became so good at paddle tennis that by the age of 12, she was the New York City women's paddle tennis champion. Althea actually quit school when she was just 13 years old, and using what she learned from her dad, she would engage in street fighting, basketball, and watching movies. She also began taking tennis lessons, and she actually didn't like the sport to begin with. She believed that playing tennis was for the weak. But in 1941, at the age of 14, she entered into her first tennis tournament, the American Tennis Association New York State Championship, and she won. She then won the national championship back-to-back in 1944 and 1945, and then in 1947, she won the first of 10 back-to-back ATA women's titles. And here are some of the other wins she had during her career. In 1949, she became the first Black woman and second ever Black athlete to play in the USTA's National Indoor Championships. In 1950, she became the first Black player to be invited to play in the US Open. In 1951, she won her first international title in the Caribbean Championship in Jamaica and became one of the first Black players to play at Wimbledon, even though she lost. She won 16 out of 18 matches during her time in Europe. In 1956, she became the first Black athlete to win a Grand Slam tournament, where she also won the doubles title while playing with Angela Buxton. In 1957, Althea would call this season Althea Gibson's year. In July of 1957, Althea played at Wimbledon again, this time winning and becoming the first Black champion in the tournament's 80-year history, and she was the first champion to ever receive the trophy personally from Queen Elizabeth II. She would then go on to win her first US Open and multiple other titles, which by the end of 1957, she won her last 55 matches and her first 2 matches in 1958, giving her a record of 57 wins in a row. She was voted Female Athlete of the Year in both 1957 and 1958 and was the first Black woman to be featured on the covers of Sports Illustrated and Time magazines. Even after all of this, and after winning 56 national and international titles in 1958, she retired from amateur tennis because back at those times, the winners didn't receive money for winning championships, and Althea was having trouble making a living. During her retirement, she tried out professional singing. She starred in a movie, appeared on television shows, and released a music album. Even after all of these accomplishments, Althea still had trouble playing tennis professionally because she was Black. But in 1964, at the age of 37, she became the first black woman to join the LPGA, Ladies Professional Golf Association. But even though she would be one of the top 50 money winners during this time, Althea never earned more than $25,000 while playing tennis in her entire lifetime. Althea broke many barriers in her time, which opened the door for many other athletes after her. It would take 15 years before another person of color would win a Grand Slam tournament, and it would take 43 years before another black woman, the amazing Serena Williams, would win her first of 6 US Open tournaments. Serena's sister, the great Venus Williams, would then win back-to-back titles at Wimbledon and the US Open in 2000 and 2001, repeating an accomplishment that Althea set in 1957 and 1958. Althea has won many awards and been inducted to many Hall of Fames, including being one of the first 6 inductees into the International Women's Sports Hall of Fame, the Black Athletes Hall of Fame, the New Jersey Hall of Fame, and more. Althea paved the way for many black athletes, especially women in tennis like Venus and Serena, and others around the world who were inspired by her. And to think, at first, she didn't even like to play tennis. But that could be you too. Don't be afraid to try something new. You might like it. And even you can make a difference in this world.
Mr. K, come on, let's go!
Oh, it sounds like I better not keep Baxter waiting. I better go. See you next time. Hi, welcome back to the Clubhouse. Listen, do you hear that? I was listening to one of my favorite kinds of music. Can you guess the name of this sound of music? Listen to the instruments. Saxophone, piano, trumpets. This style of music is called jazz. Jazz music always makes me feel good, and sometimes it makes me want to dance. And some of the best music artists this world has ever seen has come from jazz music. People like Duke Ellington, Ray Charles, Ella Fitzgerald, and even Gerald Wilson. You know, sometimes people call Gerald Wilson one of the founding members of jazz music. I think I'd like to share a little bit more about him. Let's take a look at the vision board. Gerald Wilson was born on September 4th, 1918 in Shelby, Mississippi. When he was 6 years old, his mother started giving him piano lessons. He and his mom moved to Memphis, Tennessee when he was just a bit older, and this is where he heard the sound of big bands on the radio. This was an all-new sound for Gerald that he had never heard before, and he decided he wanted to become a band leader. He once said, "To tell you the truth, I don't know if I had the talent or not. Maybe I just had the will, and that got me in." He wanted to be a band leader so badly that at the age of 11, he purchased his very first trumpet from a Sears store catalog for only $9.95. Around 1934, Gerald and his mother traveled to see the World's Fair in Chicago, and this made Gerald want to study music in the North. At the age of 16, he moved to Detroit, Michigan to finish school. In 1939, Gerald joined the Jimmy Lunsford Orchestra, replacing the trumpeter and arranger. While part of this band, he helped create songs such as High Spook and Yard Dog Mazurka. Gerald Wilson formed his very first band in 1944. This band was very popular, and within their first year, they recorded nearly 50 songs and had many national shows to play, but Gerald was not happy with his level of work and he ended that band. During his break from running his own band, he spent time touring with other bands, and during the 1950s and 60s, he spent time arranging and composing music for jazz and pop singers, TV and film, and many other things while also running his own orchestra. He even taught jazz classes at local California colleges, and he even had his own radio show for 7 years between 1969 and 1976. His music was very versatile, and oftentimes he would include Spanish or Mexican themed sounds into his music to show his love for their culture because his wife was Mexican American. Gerald Wilson had a large family. He and his wife had 3 daughters and 1 son, and he had many grandchildren, and Gerald's music was often inspired by his family. He was the band leader for many different bands for as long as he lived, and he even helped some of the most popular musicians in the jazz world with their own music. He has been nominated for a Grammy several times and has won 4 of those times. During his time alive, he released 22 albums in which he was the band leader. Gerald Wilson died on September 8, 2014 at the age of 96, and we really have to give thanks to Gerald for playing a big part in why we have such amazing music today. It always starts with a dream, and just think, Gerald Wilson started with a trumpet at the age of 11. So follow your dreams, and maybe someday you will make your very own music. Oh, hi friend, and happy Black History Month. I was just finishing up a quote from a very important man in our history. This says, "I will work with anyone to do good and no one to do wrong." This was written by a remarkable man by the name of Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was an author, a public speaker. He fought to end slavery and many other things. Let's take a look at the vision board and I'll tell you all about him. Frederick Douglass was originally born with the name Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey in February of 1817. When he was born a slave. He never really knew when his actual birthday was or how old he was, but he decided to celebrate his birthday on Valentine's Day because he remembered that his mother used to call him Little Valentine. Frederick was separated from his mom when he was a baby and was raised by his grandma Betsy Bailey until he was 6. Frederick was passed around from different slave owners while he was young. By the age of 12, his slave owner's wife began teaching him the letters of the alphabet and how to read. Eventually, he had to secretly teach himself to read and write because in those times, people didn't believe that Black people should be able to do those kinds of things. Frederick escaped to Maryland in September of 1838, and that is when he changed his name to Frederick Douglass. He had to travel many different ways to make it to his final destination, which was New York. He first traveled by steam ferry, then continued by train, then by steamboat, and then finally on foot. Frederick eventually married, and he and his wife moved to New Bedford, Massachusetts in 1838. This is actually the home they lived in, and you can visit this home today if you ever visit New Bedford. While here, Frederick joined a church and became a preacher. He gave his first speech when he was only 23, and it was all about fighting against slavery in order to end it. Frederick Douglass is best known for his first autobiography, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, which was released in 1854. An autobiography is a book that's written by an author that is telling their life story. Sometimes people did not believe that a Black person wrote that book because it was so well written. He would go on to write 3 more autobiographies in his lifetime, all of which were very successful. Aside from writing books on his life, Frederick Douglass did many other things. On August 16, 1854, Frederick traveled to Ireland to tour, and he did it right at the same time an event called the Great Famine began in Ireland. The Great Famine was a moment of time where food was hard to come by in that country. But still, Frederick loved being in a different country because he didn't have to experience being treated wrongly because of the color of his skin like he had to while he was living in the United States. Here's a little bit of what Frederick wrote after arriving in Ireland. 11 days and a half gone, and I have crossed 3,000 miles of the perilous deep. Instead of the bright blue sky of America, I am covered with the soft gray fog of Ireland. I look around in search of someone who will question my equal humanity, claim me as his slave, or offer me an insult. I get a cab, I am seated beside white people. I reach the hotel, I enter the same door. I am shown into the same parlor, I dine at the same table, and no one is offended. I find myself regarded and treated at every turn with kindness. Frederick loved Ireland so much, he lived there for 2 years giving speeches, and oftentimes the rooms were full of people. When he returned to the US in 1847, he used 500 euros that was given to him, which in today's money would equal $48,000. And he started the very first of many of his own newspapers, the North Star. In 1848, he was the only black person to attend an event that called for all women to have all rights that they didn't have at the time, like the option to vote. Frederick was even the most photographed American during the 19th century, which was between the 18 and 1900s. At one point, he was also the first African American to be nominated to be Vice President of the United States, even though he never asked to be. He met with Abraham Lincoln to talk about the mistreatment of black people and how to end slavery. And there's no doubt that Frederick Douglass was an amazing man, and this is just a little bit of the things he had done during his time. Frederick Douglass died on February 20th, 1895, and that same day, he attended a meeting with the National Council of Women where he gave a speech and received a standing ovation. It is true that he even spent his last days doing what he loved. The world we live in today, where we are surrounded by so many different people, where we have the rights to have our voices be heard and to be treated like humans, all started with Frederick Douglass and the work that he did. And hey, our world could still use a bit of fixing up, and who knows, maybe you can be the one to help make the change. I'll see you next time, and remember to do something kind. Bye. Oh, hi friends. I'm so glad you're here today. I was just getting ready to leave for the day so that I could stop at the hair store to buy some hair products for my daughters. My daughters wear their hair in many different ways. Sometimes it's curly, sometimes it's poofy, sometimes it's worn in braids. There's a lot of different ways we can style their hair, and they can be proud to know that their hair is beautiful. Some of the products that I need to get are shampoo and conditioner, which is used to clean their hair, grease, which is used to help their hair and scalp to not get dry, and a bonnet for them to wear to bed so that their hairstyle can be protected while they sleep. Do you ever use any of these products? We have a lot of different hair items that we can use that are made just for the kinds of hair we each have. And there's a lot of people who we can thank for those items. Oh, hey, say, how about before I leave, I tell you about one of them? Let's look at the vision board. This is Sarah Breedlove, better known as Madam C.J. Walker, and she was both one of the first women to ever become a millionaire, and she created many hair products that were made for the kind of hair that people of color have. Sarah was born on December 23, 1867 in Delta, Louisiana. She was one out of 6 children, and she was the first child to be born into freedom, which means she was protected from becoming a slave. Sarah became an orphan by the time she was 7 years old because both of her parents passed away. She moved in with her older sister Lavinia and her husband and worked from that young age as a servant. And Sarah only had 3 months of education, which she received during Sunday school at church. Throughout her life, Sarah had one daughter named Eulalia from her first marriage, and she married 3 times in total. Her third marriage in 1906 was to Charles Joseph Walker, and that is where she became known as Madam C.J. Walker. In 1885, Walker and her daughter moved to St. Louis, Missouri, where 3 of her brothers lived, and she found a job doing laundry, only making just a little over $1 a day. During these times, Walker suffered from severe dandruff in her hair and baldness, and this was because around these times, homes didn't have plumbing or electricity, so there were no lights at night and no running water to take showers every day or wash her hair like we can today. Sarah had learned a little about hair care from her brothers who were barbers, but around 1904, she met a lady named Annie Malone who was selling her own hair care products. Sarah began working for Annie and selling her products, and by 1906, Sarah had her own hair care business with her husband, C.J. Walker, as her business partner. She even made her daughter Eulalia in charge of taking care of orders by mail while she and her husband traveled throughout the United States to grow the business. In 1908, Mr. and Mrs. C.J. Walker moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and opened up a beauty shop and Lelia College to train people on how to do hair. In 1910, Sarah moved her business to Indianapolis, and that's where she set the headquarters for the Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company. In Indianapolis, Sarah built her home and a factory, as well as a hair salon and a beauty school so that she can train her employees, and she even added a laboratory to help with research to develop new hair products. Sarah's main focus was to help your hair grow and condition your scalp by using her products. She employed all women to be sales agents and show how the products worked, and by 1917, she had given jobs to over 20,000 women. And not only did she give women jobs, but she also taught many other women how to build their own businesses. Madam C.J. Walker passed away at the age of 51 in 1919, and her company grew even larger after she died because her business began to reach into other countries, not just the United States, and her daughter became the president of the business until she passed away. Aside from hair care, Sarah received many awards, and she fought for change in many different ways for African American people. One of the inventions most people say she created is the hot comb, which is a metal comb that uses heat to help comb through tough hair. The truth is, however, is a Frenchman by the name of Marcel Gratteau actually made this item popular in the 1870s, but Sarah found a way to make the product better by putting more space between the teeth on the comb, and that made the hot comb even more popular. And because of that, people are still straightening their hair today. So Madam C.J. Walker should have her own holiday because she really created her own lane in the African American hair care business, and many people around the world still use her ideas, her products, and the hot comb to this day. Well, I better run. I have to get to the hair store before it closes. See you later. And next time a trusted adult does your hair, think of Madam C.J. Walker. Hey, maybe you'll even create new products for the world to use when you're older. You never know. Bye for now.